Today's episode of the GoldCast is the first one of 2018. Raymond, 92nd episode ever. How insane is that?
Pretty damn insane if you ask me, and still going strong with an eventual new format later this month.
Yes, later this month we will have the brand new format. It's going to be dropping. We're going to switch to video as promised on YouTube. iTunes and Stitcher and all of our rest of our podcast hosts will still say the same. But if you are a fan of us on YouTube, we will be switching to a streaming format where you'll be able to see our beautiful shining faces. Now, Raymond, before we get started, why don't you let them know where they can find us?
You can like us on Facebook.com/TheGoldCast. You can also follow us on Twitter @TheGoldCast_. You can also follow us on Instagram @TheGoldCast. You can also subscribe to us via iTunes, YouTube, and Stitcher. Do it because it's awesome, and we love to hear from you. Like, subscribe, comment. We try to reply to as many as we can, and do the right thing.
Do the right thing. All right, here we go. We are going to talk about the return of Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry and what both of those mean for the Warriors. But first, the intro. Let's get busy.
San Francisco, are you ready? This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Boom. All right. Here we go. 2018. Let's get right into it. Isaiah Thomas is back for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and everyone's super excited. 17 points in 19 minutes. Now, here's the thing, Raymond. Now, let me preface this first. This is not a bash Isaiah Thomas podcast. I love Isaiah Thomas. He's got the heart of a lion. He's a little dude. I love that he's a little dude, but he is on our sworn enemy, the Seattle Seahawks of basketball, for the Golden State Warriors, the Cleveland Cavaliers, our biggest rival. And let's talk about this. Let's talk a little bit about last year. Last year, you've got the Cleveland Cavaliers are 27th ranked in defense, and they get heavily exposed during the playoffs during the finals when they're playing against the Warriors, and they literally defensively have no answer for the Warriors. They're putting up over 100 points and still losing. So in the offseason, now we have Isaiah Thomas. He's here. Let's go back to his playoff run last year during the Eastern Conference. When he goes down, the defensive prowess of Boston is heavily ramped. All of a sudden, their defensive deficiencies are no longer deficiencies because Isaiah Thomas is out of the lineup. Now, obviously, what he does offensively in what is a mostly offensive sport makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I'm not dissing what he does offensively, but defensively, due to his size, he is a defensive liability. And essentially, teams at the playoff level are going 5-on-4 when Boston had their backs against the wall and were playing defense. Fast forward now to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They now have the second to last ranked defense in the NBA. Isaiah Thomas is back. I have to admit, I am licking my chops thinking about this idea that there is no way this team defensively is going to have an answer for us. Defensively, what's Isaiah Thomas going to do? What are they going to do when there's four guys against Draymond, Steph, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and whoever the fifth man is, because it's kind of always a rotating thing. Ray, I want to hear what your thoughts are. What do you feel about Isaiah Thomas coming back, and do you agree with me that this actually puts the Warriors in a better chance to win?
Well, the fifth is always Zaza Pachulia. It's not really a rotation. Zaza's typically the starting center, and then depending on who we're playing, usually determines whether Omri Caspi comes in. Andre Iguodala is obviously going to come in that second unit. David West is obviously a part of that second unit. Jordan Bell sometimes comes in depending on the matchup. He came in the Dallas game. We saw that. He also came into the Grizzlies game. But as far as Cleveland's concerned, the only thing that they upgraded, with the exception of Jay Crowder, was offense. They got two has-been scorers in Derrick Rose and D. Wade, both of whom have durability issues now. Wade simply because he's older, and Derrick Rose simply because he's fragile. Whereas Isaiah Thomas is a prolific scorer, but a huge liability on defense, even worse than Kyrie Irving. In fact, he's even older than Kyrie Irving and coming off of a significant hip injury, which does affect your movement, your turning ability, all of that. He played well last night. I think he's going to be okay because he's still young enough for an injury like that not to impede him too much. Severity, of course, is obviously depending on that degree of that, but I think he's going to be all right for the long haul. However, when you add three scorers, one defender off the bench, that still is not enough to match Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry. Klay Thompson, one of the best two-way players. Steph Curry, who's a top 10 in defensive point guard. Kevin Durant, who's playing the best defense of his entire career. Draymond Green, a former defensive player of the year, former runner-up the previous 2 years. So, and same thing with Zaza. Zaza's a good defender. Iguodala is a great defender. David West is a great defender. Jordan Bell was picked because of his defensive prowess and what he can obviously become offensively. He's shown the flashes of that, but he's been great off the rebounds and blocks. Patrick McCaw, another guy causing blocks and also getting steals. So there's just too much defensive depth and offensive depth for Cleveland to really keep up, no matter what. I don't even think Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade are even going to make it that long in terms of durability. I don't think that they got enough strength. I mean, I understand he's coming off the bench now, which is probably a smarter move versus inserting him into the starting lineup because he just doesn't have that type of stamina anymore. So if you do want to preserve him, having him come off the bench is the best thing to do. But if they deviate from that, or if something significant happens, which is a really, really high chance of happening, especially with Derrick Rose, then good luck. Your bench is going to be thin. You're going to lose your two scores, which means offensively you're going to be strapped, keeping up with the best offensive team in the NBA, one of the best we've seen in the history of the association. So unfortunately, they took one step forward with Jay Crowder, but probably I would wager 3 steps back with Isaiah Thomas, Derrick Rose, and D. Wade. You could argue 2 steps forward, 2 steps back because Isaiah Thomas is pretty good. But if we're in terms of defense, it's 1 step forward, 3 steps back. So I'm sorry, but it's just not enough, And I know they're playing the Rockets tonight, which is a team that's obsessed with the Warriors. They're not going to really I don't think they're going to get very far either. They're down Harden, but Kevin Durant's not playing tonight. And I know that the Warriors typically struggle in back-to-backs, but I don't think that Chris Paul is going to lead the charge considering how fragile he's become in the twilight of his career. He's just not as durable as he used to be. He can't move as well as he used to move, and he plays in an offense that requires a lot of quick, fast movement, quick pace offense, similar to the Warriors' pace, because that's how D'Antoni has always run it, even back with the Steve Nash days. But I don't think it's enough. Not only the Warriors, the Rockets are not enough, but Cleveland just hasn't done enough to really answer the Warriors' riddle.
I agree. I'm glad we're in agreement about that. Let's talk a little bit about the return of Steph. Now, that is quite a return.
Steph was huge. He absolutely torched the Memphis Grizzlies, dropping 38. He only played 25 minutes, too, which was 10 minutes less than Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. They both dropped 20 and 17, respectively. But Steph Curry was, 21 and 20 points. Zaza Pachulia dropped 17 that day, which is rare for him. But Steph Curry dropped 38. His shooting was off the charts, 76% from the field, 77% from three-point range. He was 10 of 13. He's obviously not going to drop 10 every game, but even against Dallas, he had the clutch 3 at the very end. His minutes started to match that of Klay and Durant. He was up to 34 minutes, so he bumped it up by nearly 10 minutes. He was 57% from the field, 46 from 3. He was 6 of 13, so just a shy under 50%. Ends up dropping 32 with that clutch 3 at the very end to answer Harrison Barnes' clutch 2 to keep the game tied. So I'm sorry, but 2-time MVP versus Harrison Barnes, who just never seemed to really tap and be the player that we were hoping for him to be. So we ended up just getting Kevin Durant instead. not enough for Dallas Mavericks. And the point is, Dallas Mavericks and Memphis, for that matter, outshot us in 3 points in both those games. So teams are trying to live and die by the three the way that the Warriors live and die by the three. The problem is that with the depth in the bench and the defensive personnel to stop the Warriors' offensive potency, they're gonna die by the three more than live by the three. Even though Dallas is shooting a lot of threes this year, look at their record. Their record is 13-26. Is that a team that is, really honing the 3-point philosophy that the Warriors pioneered? So obviously not. 30-8 versus 13-26. They outshot the Warriors tonight. Like I said, both them and the Grizzlies did, but it didn't do anything. It didn't change anything. Just because you shoot more threes than the Warriors doesn't mean you're going to beat the Warriors, because the Warriors do one thing fundamentally better and more soundly than any other team, and that's play defense. That's why they lead the league in defensive rebounds. They lead the league in blocks, and they're the third best defense in the association. So until you start to get into that territory, you try to beat them with just the threes alone, it's just not going to happen. So good luck. I don't expect them. I expect them to win tonight against the Rockets, despite the fact that don't have Kevin Durant, because on the other end they don't have James Harden. So I think we're going to win despite that.
Boom. There it is. Now, last thing, Ray, before we sign off, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the final game for the 49ers. Wow, what a turnaround. First of all, remember when we were getting trolled at the beginning of the year by all the Raider fans? Remember how badly they were trolling us?
Yeah, totally.
And here's the thing. So we're trolled by those Raider fans, and what's really funny is we both end up with the same record, 6-10, but for some reason, ours feels a lot different than theirs, doesn't it? It feels completely different.
Yeah, I think for the obvious reason that Derek Carr had a huge breakout year last year. They were 12-4 on their way to the playoffs. They were projected to be a better AFC contender than the Patriots, and then Derek Carr broke his leg, and that was the end of their season. They couldn't do anything. And Jack Del Rio got fired. I think it was appropriate because he's not a good coach. When you're a top offense and you fire the guy that helped you facilitate that top tier offense, and you get a guy that basically regresses you back because he's buddy with your starting quarterback, and something needs to happen. And here's the other thing. Jack Del Rio has fired more assistants than any other coach in NFL history. So where's the accountability? If you keep firing the people around you, how do you expect to make any progress when you're killing the guys that are trying to develop your playbooks and your defensive playbooks and your offensive playbooks? You essentially set Derek Carr back a season with this type of year in Todd Downey, because he's terrible. It's asinine that I even have to talk about the Raiders for as long as I am right now. But the point is, they regressed, we progressed, and there's a lot more hope and I think enthusiasm going into the Niners off season and then heading back in later this year than there is for the Raiders. I think because they don't even have a head coach right now. We know that John Gruden might be the guy. I just don't know if you need to get an old coach that's been out of the league for a long time. I understand he still studies and he's in the broadcasting booth and he's still heavily involved and understands the sport very well. It's not like he's completely absent like Joe Gibbs when he took a break to go to NASCAR and then came back to the NFL. Whereas in this case, John Gruden's still very much attached to the sport and very much up to speed with how the sport has evolved. But whether or not that's going to translate in his ability to coach this particular team at this particular time remains to be seen. But as far as the Niners are concerned, I think there's huge anticipation for next year, and everyone's talking playoffs now, and I think that's appropriate considering what Jimmy G has done and what we're going to do in the offseason.
I agree. And so going back to tie this all back into that final game of the year, I was there in the Coliseum watching us play the Rams. The ratio of Niner to Rams fan, it felt like it was about 3-1. I mean, it was a sea of red everywhere. The announcer over the mic asked, "Whose house is this?" And the entire stadium yelled, "Niners." Then, when the Rams were on offense, about to they were trying to score. I know, it's so sad. So sad. When the Niners were about to score, when the Rams were trying to score, they were like in their own end zone. They were somewhere around the 10 and the 5. It was hard to see because I was behind one of the goalposts. And the crowd started chanting, "Defense, ba, 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 ba. Defense, ba, 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 ba." Against the Rams on offense in LA. This is the NFC West champs.
That's how sad it is to be a Rams fan. You don't even have good representation on the eve of your regular season after winning the division and hosting a playoff game. So I don't know what to say, LA. That's on you guys. You guys wanted a sports team. You got a sports team. In fact, you got two over there in San Diego and San Diego in the Chargers and the Rams, and that's just really sad. God damn, it feels good to be a Niner fan and to be born and raised from San Francisco. But I'll tell you what, Jimmy G put up another good performance. The two picks don't look good on his overall touchdown interception ratio. He was 6 for 5 in the 5 games. But if you look at those two picks, Marquise Goodwin actually did a hesitation step in his route, which allowed the cornerback to jump it a little bit there. And that guy's a rookie too, Peterson. And then in the second one, it looked like the route was supposed to be a double move go route based on where Jimmy was throwing it. He was supposed to jump, double move, and then start to cut inside. He didn't do that. It looked like he was doing a button hook, a stop button hook, and then he slipped in the middle of that, of when he was doing the move, and then the ball sailed over. So not necessarily like the cornerback making a tremendous athletic move. It was more so with the jump one than the one that was just overthrown. But it looked more like there was miscommunication on the receiving end, which led to those picks. The more legitimate one was last week when he actually got hit while he was throwing, which fluttered the ball and then didn't end up going to its intended target because he got hit when he's throwing it. So he just needs to get it out a little bit faster. But other than that, great performance by Jimmy G. He had 8 plays of 10 yards or more, 8 plays of 12 yards or more, whereas the Rams only had 3 plays of such yardage. So super proficient, 50% on third down efficiency, 80% for a 5 on red zone efficiency. So Matt Mayoka had a really cool article that I encourage you guys to check out, which shows the 49ers offense and how they improved with Jimmy Garoppolo. So before Garoppolo, we were 21st in yards per game. After Garoppolo, we were first in the NFL. Net passing per game, we were 17th in the NFL before Jimmy. After Jimmy, our total is 297, which ranks first in the NFL. And this is projected. And the NFL ranks that are projected over the entire season. Third downs, we were 26th in the NFL before Jimmy. After Jimmy, we have 50%, which ranks first in the NFL. Completion percentage, 67%, which was 31st in the NFL before Jimmy, third in the NFL after. Sacks allowed, we were tied for the 6th most in the NFL. After Jimmy, we were 27th most in the NFL, which is where you want to be in that statistical category. You don't want to allow – the higher up rank you are, the better it looks statistically. Time of possession, we were also first in the NFL. We were 31st before Jimmy, first in the NFL with Jimmy. Points per game, we were 28th in the NFL before Jimmy. After Jimmy, 28.8 points scored per game. That ranks second in the NFL. So huge jumps with Jimmy being there. And these are projected and not like within the 5 game span, but projected over a season. This is where we would rank. We would be basically the number 1 offense in the NFL.
Boom.
Imagine what happens when we get more pieces around him.
Yep, imagine what happens. Really exciting stuff. Thanks for dropping all those stats. It was really fun. Hey, 49er faithful, great to see so many of you out at the Coliseum. We'll see what happens tonight against the Rockets. We are moving fully into NBA mode. Of course, we will be checking in during the NFL post, so you're definitely getting our playoff reactions because I love the NFL post. Ray loves the NFL post. But we are starting to move into NBA action with the Golden State Warriors. We'll see what happens. Raymond, before we leave, why don't you let them know where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ray Solis and on Instagram at Ray Solis1.
Boom. You can find me on Instagram, Rudy Solis 3, and on Twitter, Rudy Solis 3RD, Rudy Solis 3rd. So concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis 3rd, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis 1st, baby.
Boom. We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.
This is the GoldCast.